First, we could see our professional Marko conducting the weight-bearing lunge mobility test, assessing left ankle dorsiflexion. We can see that the client is in an active state. Body weight is being shifted from the front knee. Her toes are 6 centimeters from the wall, and her knee is being positioned as far as possible past the toes. Actively, she reaches level 1. Entering a passive test now, our client moves her foot back 1 centimeter. Again, she moves it back another centimeter, reaching 8 centimeters, and we could see that her heel is lifting up a little bit as she's doing so. Therefore, she would still be in level 1 as she's only gone 8 centimeters. Now the client's active mobility of the right ankle is being tested. The toes are at 6 centimeters from the wall, and as she touches the wall, we can see that she is at level 1. Entering a passive test, her toes move back 1 centimeter, and we can see her heel lift again. She moves back another centimeter and cannot touch the wall. Overall, the mobility of her ankle is level 1. She did have more trouble with her left leg as she is right leg dominant. Now we have Marko conducting the shoulder reach mobility test, assessing right shoulder flexion. Marko's finger is indicating the C7, and we see him instructing our client to keep her head up. Her head does drop slightly to the right, though, as she begins the test. Most of her fist does pass the C7 at about positive 5 centimeters, leaving her active mobility at a level 3. Assessing the left shoulder, we see that her head is dropping forward a bit, but most of her fist does pass the C7 at about positive 5 centimeters, again at a level 3. Both left and right shoulders do seem to have equal mobility. Entering the passive test using the right shoulder, Marko is using himself as an external force, and we can see that the first knuckle does drop into the level 4 range at about positive 8 centimeters. Moving on to the left shoulder, Marko is again using himself as the external force, and we can also see the first knuckle dropping into that level 4 range. For both passive tests, the head was not dropped, and for both passive and active, the shoulders were kept relatively down and not scrunched up. Overall, both left and right shoulders had equal mobility. Now we see Marko conducting the straight leg mobility test, assessing right hip mobility. The dowel is placed at the knee to begin, and as the leg is lifted, the ankle joint does pass the dowel. Moving the dowel to mid-thigh, the ankle joint does not pass the dowel, and the opposite leg is slightly raised and turned inward, and the same conclusion can be made when the dowel is at the hip joint. Overall, our client's active hip mobility is at level 2. Entering a passive test, Marko is using himself as the external force, pushing the client's leg up, causing the ankle joint to pass the dowel when placed at the knee or at the mid-thigh. The ankle joint did not pass the dowel when placed at the hip, leaving our client at a level 3 range of passive right hip mobility. It was also noted that her opposite leg did not lift as much, if at all, during passive tests. Now assessing the left hip, Marko is placing the dowel at the knee, the mid-thigh, and the hip joint. Our client's ankle did not pass the dowel at any of these stations, and it was noted that her opposite leg did lift slightly, leaving her active left hip joint mobility at a level 1. This could be due to our client being right leg dominant, as they scored a higher level with their right leg. Now doing a passive test, Marko is using himself as the external force, pushing our client's leg up, causing the ankle joint to pass the dowel when placed at the knee and mid-thigh. The ankle joint did not pass the dowel when it was placed at the hip, leaving our client at a level 3 range for passive hip mobility, and this is consistent with the right leg test. Our client's right leg stability, asking the client to reach anteriorly, posteromedially, and posterolaterally with the left leg. The client's relative reach anteriorly is 18 inches, posteromedially is 31 inches, and posterolaterally is 27.5 inches. There was some swaying, but overall the knee, hip, and ankle joints were relatively aligned. Now, measuring the left leg stability, Marko walks our client through moving the right leg anteriorly, posteromedially, and posterolaterally, with our client's relative reach anteriorly being 22 inches, posteromedially being 33.5 inches, and posterolaterally being 32 inches. There was less swaying, and our client had a greater relative reach.
Our client's passive mobility greatly surpassed the active mobility that her body naturally possesses. The best example of this could be seen in the straight leg hip mobility test. During active testing, our client reached level 1 in her left hip and level 2 in her right. This is where either her left leg became lifted off the ground or it reached its maximal distance. It was not until our professional, Marko, had applied a force to both legs that she was able to reach level 3. Her mobility, especially in her left hip, increased greatly, but this is what we tend to see when measuring passive mobility. In the Y balance test, active mobility is more of an influence since no external force other than your own weight is helping you reach a certain distance. If you have a greater flexibility and mobility, you can extend to a further distance while maintaining balance. This is because your body is more used to the extended position, so it will not feel as awkward when getting into it. Since our client lacked active mobility in the hips, when she would try to extend in each direction, she would not be able to remain stable enough to allow a further range of motion. In Frederick Anderson's case, I believe these tests could be beneficial to find out which aspects of his range of motion need improvement and possibly compare them to where they should be. Flexibility and range of motion are very important aspects of being a high-level goalie, and although these tests may seem minimal for athletes, it may be surprising that they are the ones who benefit the most from it. This is because, over time, sports take a toll on the body, and for an athlete such as a goalie, they put their body into uncomfortable positions to defend a post or to stop a shot through their 5-hole. If you do not have great flexibility and range of motion, you will have an increased chance of injury while also not being able to move your body as freely as desired. And in a professional sport, this could be the difference between playing and sitting.